Is that the sound of horsepower to you? Well, maybe it should be. No, we haven't lost our minds completely, at least. You see, we just had to get our hands on one of these Mazda Speed 3s and see what all the commotion is about. It's been touted as one of the fastest front-wheel cars in the world, and, well, if you're one of those who thinks there's no replacement for displacement, sorry, dude, things have changed a bit. With some help from an intercooled turbocharger, this 2.3-liter four-banger produces 263 horsepower at the motor. Of course, living up to our name, we want to see how much we can beat that. Now, this pocket rocket belongs to Hypertech, and on their dyno, it made 242 horses at the front wheels before upgrading the exhaust to a MagnaFlow cat power. To give the intercooler more air like it would get on the road, we're removing the cover and installing this fan on top of it. Okay, at 251.6 horsepower, we're right at 10 horses over stock with the exhaust.
Now we want to give it a performance tune using Hypertech's new Max Energy Sport programmer. Now the same programmer also tuned naturally aspirated Mazda 3s, 6s, and RX-8s. Now just like all their other tuners, you just plug it in, follow the prompts, and you're good to go. And go a little faster. Yeah, there's some big numbers there. You're looking at 52. No, I'm sorry, 58 to 200, right? Mm-hmm. But man, after that, about 57, it starts picking up, and there's as much as a 71 horsepower gain. That is unbelievable out of a handheld programmer.
Yeah.
71 horsepower. Wow.
Okay, what would happen if we added a performance intake to this setup? We're going to find out by replacing the stock system with an AEM kit made especially for the Speed 3. And the Hypertech programmer is designed with an upgrade just like that in mind. It'll ask you if you have an aftermarket intake and let you scroll through a list of brands until you find the one you installed. Well, there's our AEM.
That gave us 8 more peak horsepower, and at 6,400, we got a gain of 76. Not bad for a four-banger on roids.
Whatever it's on, it was quite a surprise. Hey, I've never seen galleys so eager to get a car out of the building. Just to make sure we didn't dream those dyno runs, we're making a beeline to the back roads, to a deserted stretch where we can see if this Speed 3 can eat some asphalt.
Thing is fast.
Oh, it's real, all right. And don't tell anyone I said this, but with the upgrades we gave it, this little modified grocery getter could put a few Mustangs to shame. And if we could keep our foot out of it, great gas mileage should be a bonus with the new tune. Yeah, that's a big if. The way it handles this hatchback might even make a decent road course machine. Nice features, but nothing to compare with this four-banger's surprising power, especially now. Maybe we ought to call this Speed 3 the Speed Freak.
All right, it's plain and simple. Joe and I both agree. This is one bitchin' pocket rocket, and I bet we can get back to the shop as fast as we got out here.
Think we'll have any rubber when we get back? So what was so good about the good old days? Well, if you like cars, the answer's easy. Hundreds roll into Beach Bend Raceway Park each year, representing the good old glory days of hot rodding and drag racing. It's all about the NHRA Museum's mission of preserving the heritage of high performance through the cars, the people, the vintage racing. So far, I think you'll agree, mission accomplished. And for the 8th year in a row, Holley Performance has played host to this must-see event right here in its hometown.
The guys at Holley are a bunch of gearheads, a bunch of hot rodders. We love drag racing, and this is a highlight of our year every year.
About 25,000 fans endured the heat to watch the vintage cars race, to trek through the miles of pre-1972 show and shine entries, and to stroll the amazing midway to rewind and reminisce. These are modified machines that race their way into the history books, back when homegrown horsepower technology paved the way to quarter-mile wins. Of course, you don't have to be old enough to remember these cars to appreciate their pioneer performance and greatness.
If I could go to one show a year, this is a show I like to go to.
A group of factory race cars from the Ford drag team were on display, including this impeccable, untouched 71 Mach 1.
The beauty of this car is it's still all original. It's never been cut or modified. The last two cars that are uncut in original paint are this car and the Pro Stock Mustang camera powered, which I own both of.
Lucky dog. Of course, it's fun to find out what everyday car guys are doing in the way of restoration and modification of their show cars. Well, like this rat rod truck, with a handy option you won't find on any new or old production cars. Make no mistake, the real thrill of these reunions is witnessing the power and glory of vintage drag racing. And racing a front-engine top fueler is a rush that attracts many younger drivers, like two-time reunion champ Troy Green.
I saw a pair of these cars at my local track when I was about 15 years old, and it was just me and my dad there, and I looked over at my dad and I said, "Dad, that right there is what I want to do." About 2 years later, we thought we were smart enough to go top fuel racing, so we did it and haven't looked back. People are really intrigued with these cars because this scares them to death, that this is in my lap, you know, and that you're sitting on the rear end. And I tell you what, I couldn't feel safer in one of these cars. You can't be any bigger than 450 inches, and it's 4.6 pounds per cubic inch. So you kind of want to build a relatively small motor so you can build a light car.
What's the secret to winning then?
In the bell housing, it's the clutch. These things are gonna make a ton of power, but it's manipulating that power to the ground through a 12-inch tire.
Troy's first qualifying run was hampered by a tricky track and new car nuances. Alcohol funny cars are the other top stars of vintage racing. Pete Gallen and his 74 Vega, called Poverty Stricken, were celebrating a 1-year anniversary in the class.
We ran an alcohol car for years, and I took a 19-year sabbatical. Wanted to get back into racing. My son convinced me that I should build one of these cars.
He's your crew chief, by the way, right?
He makes all the calls.
Make sure the wheels are tight.
It's a 426 engine. Everything else is basically limited. The rules are restricted fuel pump and restricted blower. The blowers produced by Littlefield Blowers. The money is certainly not the drive. The drive is, you know, I'm 53 years old, and it was like, what do you want to do to have fun? And we're still going fast and winning and having fun.
Well, Hemis have their own special place in hot rod history and their own special race. We'll share that one with you right after the break. Horsepower's back from the Hot Rod Reunion in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Last year's Nostalgia Top Fuel champ Troy Green wasn't able to make it 2 in a row, as top qualifier Brad Thompson would go on to take the trophy. Pete Gallen was uncatchable on his way to the winner's circle in his class.
Pump the brake a little bit. Second light comes on, tree flashes, let go of the brake handle. About 3 seconds into the run, you shift it. Off the throttle, clutch in, and hit the parachutes. Coast on down. So get off your couches and get out here and do this.
Back in the 60s, Mopars were the stars of superstock racing, especially when Hemi-powered Darts and Cudas came along. Now they've got their own mini-series thanks to a competitive bunch of NHRA Superstock Mopar racers.
A couple years ago at Indy, some of the guys got together and decided, all right, we're going to put money in, kind of a winner-take-all pool, and the winner takes home the dough. Mopar got wind of it a year or so later and thought, hey, we want to get in on this. And so they started to be the premier sponsor of the Mopar Hemi Challenge beginning in 2002.
And this race within a race is their season opener here in Bowling Green.
What's really cool about it, it's a heads-up class. It's first to the finish line, and I think people really appreciate that.
Not only the fastest Cudas and darts in Superstock, they're also gorgeous. Now these are show quality restored factory muscle cars with just enough rules to keep it all real.
It's naturally aspirated. We run 2 4-barrel carburetors. They are vacuum secondary carburetors. It's the exact carburetors that were on it coming out in 1968. It's limited to 426 cubes, steel block, steel crank, steel heads. You are allowed a sheet metal intake as long as it will fit underneath your stock hood.
Charlie Westcott Jr. from the get-go was the guy to beat. The #1 qualifier does all the work on his 68 Cuda called Warfish and had the horsepower advantage this weekend.
I just feel that I have a real good feel for the car and how everything works because I put it all together myself. I understand how it works and it gives me an advantage.
Meanwhile, David Barton in another Cuda was fighting his way to the finals, near beating Bales in eliminations.
To beat him, I gotta have almost a perfect light and hopefully he's gonna miss a gear or something.
Now, in case you're thinking, oh, just a bunch of Mopar frat brothers racing for fun, well, think again.
We've never really been friends. We kind of butt heads a little bit. It's definitely a Westcott versus Barton race all the time, so he's definitely the guy to beat once again.
Here we go, the finals of the Hot Rod Reunion Hemi Challenge. Barton cuts the better light, but Westcott drives around him to cross the finish line first with an 851 ET.
I was afraid that was the first time we'd really run in the dark, and I didn't want a red light, so I kind of backed off this a little bit on the light. I had a 90 and he had a 26, but he did a good job. He tried to do what he could do, but this wasn't enough this time.
A great weekend for Westcott for sure. Also a great weekend for all those who built the cars, whether for show or go. They're all keeping the hot rod heritage flame burning, especially when they light them up and run.
You're watching Horsepower. For a DVD copy of this episode, just go to PowerBlockTV.com and order your copy for just $5.95 plus shipping and handling. Start your own Horsepower collection, delivered right to your door from the Power Block.
We're pretty lucky to have a shop outfitted with most of the equipment we need to tackle just about any job. Well, for example, if you're removing a transmission from a car on jack stands, we have a jack especially for that from Matco Tools. We've even got an ultrasonic cleaning system from Safety Clean that uses high-frequency sound waves and a special solution to thoroughly clean parts. Then, of course, there's our favorite tools, the dynos we use to measure horsepower at the flywheel and at the rear wheels. But let's face it, on a home shop budget, sometimes you've got to improvise. Let's say you've got a rear end swap to do and you just can't see spending the extra money on that special tool. Well, you could use a floor jack, but the rear end is going to be unstable. If it falls off the jack, it may damage the rear end cover or even a freshly painted housing. Not to mention, you may even crush a toe. So today, I'm going to show you how to make your own rolling rear end stand for not much work and better yet, not much money. For supplies, all you need is some 1-inch flat stock, 1.5 inch angle, a can of black spray paint, and some casters that we got at a local hardware store. Now the cost for all this, about 20 bucks. After marking off a 28 and 14-inch length of the angle iron, cut 2 pieces of each length. Then cut every corner at a 45-degree angle. Now I'm using this Date cold saw because it's quicker and easier. However, you can get the job done with a cutoff wheel, hacksaw, or even a chop saw if you've got one. The 45-degree angles will ensure the base is square. After tacking the top side, turn it over to fully weld the seams. Also, drill 4 holes at each corner for the casters. Using a vise and a 13.5-inch piece of flat stock, start a 45-degree bend 7 inches from the end. Use an angle finder to verify your 45 degrees. Now 3.5 inches from that bend, make another 45-degree bend the opposite direction. Now we need to weld the two pairs together, making a V at the top. Weld in some tabs from leftover flat stock to support the V's, and then drill some bolt holes. I'm welding in these two tabs up front for a pinion support. Now I want to knock off the sharp edges with a grinder and go over all the metal with a sanding disc to get rid of all the welding slag. Next, wipe it down with lacquer thinner and spray on a couple coats of duplicolor enamel. When the paint's dry, go ahead and add the casters to make the stand mobile. Now we can add all the supports and tie them together with bolts and nuts and tighten them down. Now you've got a handy home-built stand you can roll onto your car anytime to remove and install a rear end without risking a hernia or a broken toe. Now I only spent about $20 in materials to build this thing, so if you're a do-it-yourself kind of guy, this is the perfect project for you.
If premium gasoline has more octane, well, I guess it stands to reason premium spark plugs should have more spark energy, right? Well, the makers of these Polestar pulse plugs claim a peak power of 1 million watts for more horsepower and fuel efficiency. Here's a test on their website shot at 68,000 frames a second. Standard plug on the left, Polestar pulse plug on the right. Now you can get that same technology in platinum and iridium, two metals known for durability and long life. The platinums go for $9.95, iridium $12.95. You can get them both at sparkplugs.com.
Let me be up front with you. A cool way to add some style to your ride is with a billet grill, like this one from T-Rex for the new Camaro. Now it installs over the factory grill in about 30 minutes with absolutely no cutting. It's made from high-quality aircraft billet aluminum, hand-assembled, TIG welded, and this one has a black powder coat finish. It goes for about $380, but they got plenty of other applications with prices starting out at around $100.
Say, if you're one of those lucky owners of a 2011 Mustang, you might consider this for your first upgrade. Stainless Works is the first to offer long tube headers for the new model. 1 7/8 inch primaries feed into 3-inch slip fit collectors with integrated merge spikes. Now down the line, you can also get a catted mid pipe for your Mustang. This whole assortment here goes for about $14.50. You can use your factory cats and only spend about $11.50. Either way, your pony's going to breathe better for it. Well, better join us next time for another round of horsepower. See you then.